These two guys have Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
All right, our executive producer, Declan, has, I think, responsibly talked us out of just ranting about Phil Cuzzy again. We already did that on the Ricey Unchained episode of Mackey and Judd. I said, listen, I could rant about Phil Cuzzy being a clown for 4 hours. If we had that 4-hour radio show we used to do on 1500 ESPN, it would just be us bitching about Phil Cuzzy and Major League Baseball.
Calls.
Yeah. But we already did that on Ricey Unchained.
646-8255. What do you think about Phil Cuzzy? Calling in.
What is that? 651-646-8255. Wow, I still remember that number. Haven't said it in 4 years.
Jeff from Golden Valley, you're on.
Is that number, are the lines open right now, Dex? 651?
No. Someone, I don't know who it is, but sometimes they get unblocked. I have them blocked. Like, if someone really needs to contact me, i.e. engineering, the warm line is always open, so they can contact me through that.
But what if you're Bob and Orno and you want to get a hold of
Bob?
Or you got a question about tonight's Twins game. What time does it start?
I understand that Chris Carlin is now doing his second show on ESPN Radio for the day, but I can't control that. You know, like it's just.
Carlin's pulling a double shift right now.
Well, I don't know if he is, but that's my point. Of if that's what they're calling to complain about, I can't do anything about Chris Carlin working overtime or Courtney Cronin, now in
being on every show every day.
Being on every show.
Why does the Greeny show never have Greeny? That's an
true,
ESPN
though.
radio programming
It's
decision.
absolutely true. Greeny is never on a show called Greeny.
Well, his priorities start with NBA Countdown, NBA or NFL Draft, and NBA Draft, and then get up the TV show. And if he has time, he'll do his 2-hour radio show.
You're exactly. Hey, Hamon, what's going on? Give me your list of all-time great Mets.
Amazing. So anyhow, all right. Judd promised last week. So we talked about Tim Connolly being really wishy-washy on the Chad Hartman show. Our friend Chad Hartman. Chad asked him very pointed questions. Do you want to squash the Washington rumors right now? Do you plan on being here for a long time? Right? And he just kept saying weird, vague things. And so people are saying, man, if that dude, after 1 year, he lights the flame, makes one of the most controversial trades in NBA history, if he were to leave like 12 months later, peace out for the Washington Wizards, where would he rank among Minnesota sports scumbags? Well, Judd, you have a pecking order. We love to rank things on Tuesdays here, so frame this up. How did you? What's the framing of this list? Who qualifies? What are the parameters?
Okay, so there's three things that I want to start with. Because this is scumbag. First of all, is a very strong word. It's aggressive.
It's very aggressive.
Word.
But that's the word I think you used when you told us about your list, right?
But I sat down and gave this a ton of thought, and like who belongs, who doesn't, right? So the way that I am going to put this is a list of Minnesota sports scumbags, or what I'm calling our own worst enemies.
Okay.
So people that we grew to despise. The third, 3, 2, 1 on qualifications. The third is this. This is people that caused Minnesota sports fans and their teams pain with actions, okay? So just to be very clear, this is not guys that we hate like Aaron Rodgers. Brett Favre is a Packer. The Yankees. Just to be very, very clear. Own worst enemies is important here.
This is friendly fire. This is the call is coming from inside the house.
Exactly. Get out of the house. It's coming from inside. I have a list of 10. I have 5 honorable mentions.
Wow.
Now there's going to be a name missing from this list because this is a fun list, I think, for the most part. But I got a tweet about this, and it's a very good point. A guy like Darren Sharper, who was a serial predator, I'm not including because he is in his own special place in hell. Okay.
Okay.
So like
he was an excellent guest on the Ricey and Mackey show.
Was.
I will say that it was tough to get a hold of him one Friday morning, and we found out why.
Yep.
Yeah.
But this is so this list is sports scumbags. It's not real life scumbags. Just to be very clear. I thought that was a very fair question.
Although there might be some crossover here. I can think of one guy that was both for sure. But okay.
Well, I can think of a few. One who didn't make this list because I just couldn't do it. All right. Honorable mention. I've got 5. I'm going to start from the bottom and work my way up, and then we will get to the top 10.
Okay.
Number 5, a guy who I told you last week I was going to put on this list, and you objected. And in retrospect now, when I looked at it in its totality, he doesn't make the final real list. Former Gopher football coach Lou Holtz.
Yeah.
He went 10-12 and 7-10 in the Big Ten in 2 seasons with the Gophers, got them to a bowl game, and then bolted because fans didn't know this. The university did. He had language, it sounds like, in his contract that he could take Phil's favorite job, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish football coaching job. But nonetheless, we were very upset. We felt used. It was sort of Tim Conley-like, but with a more successful coach. So Lou Holtz.
Yeah, I think my question there would be for Lou. What is he supposed to do? So he tells the university, hey, I'm totally in on this job unless that job opens up. Is he then supposed to go to the public and say, hey, great to be here, or happy to be here at the University of Minnesota, right?
Yeah, that's better. Much better.
And by the way, I love it here, but I love it in South Bend, Indiana more. So if that job opens, I'm gone. But in the meantime, let's go win 6 games and get to the Independence Bowl if possible.
And that's exactly what they did. And then we were left with Goody. All right. The next honorable mention. And this includes gross incompetence too. This list, okay? So scumbag or people that submarined us, possibly not on purpose, but if they were bad enough, they make this list. Honorable mention, Kurt Rambis. 32 and 132 in 2 seasons as Wolves coach. I'll repeat that. 32 and 132. Completely in over his head, had no clue, was brutal. He actually qualifies just because of gross incompetence of Kurt Rambis.
He was supposed to be the Phil Jackson protege, right? The second coming of Phil Jackson, the Zen Master 2.0.
Had the glasses, tried to look smart because as a player, he had the goggles.
And if I remember, the only thing Phil Jackson and Kurt Rambis had in common as head coaches is they definitely would both sit there with their arms crossed and do nothing when the team needed a timeout called.
Yes.
Phil was a work through it yourself kind of a guy, and so was Kurt Rambis, but a little different when Johnny Flynn is your point guard.
and Kobe is not on your team. Yes, exactly right. All right, the third honorable mention, a guy who actually got off to a decent start here, but his departure was quick and not all that pleasant. Bernard Berrien. 6-year, $42 million free agent contract, had a good first year, was released after 3+ seasons, and if I recall right, made a derogatory comment about John Kriesel that basically sealed his fate and had become petulant and a complete malcontent.
That's
Bernard
right.
Berrien makes this list.
What did he chirped Kriesel on Twitter or something?
Yeah.
This is when Kriesel was in office, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he did. And but I mean, he was so petulant by the end. And look, if you're really good, I think you can pull that crap and get away with it. But Bernard Berrien, he had one good year and then just became this raging a-hole. And so he makes my honorable mention list. The fourth one on this portion of the list, Erasmus James. Erasmus James had 4 sacks as a rookie, but then played 2 more seasons as a Viking, had 1 sack in 8 games, and hated football.
Okay, I think I have a new word for this list.
Okay.
These are Minnesota sports saboteurs.
That's good. Yeah. Perfect.
Minnesota sports, it could be self-sabotaging.
I like it. I love it.
In an incompetent way. It could be in a devious way, but these are Minnesota sports saboteurs.
Love it. Yes.
Okay.
That's well put. I love that. Plus, that's a great word.
Saboteur.
Right. Saboteur.
Declan, can you spell saboteur?
Yeah, can you type that on the screen?
I typed it in my doc. SABAOTERS.
I don't even know.
You got 3 of them right. I think the SAB, and then things went off the rails. It's SABOTEUR.
All right,
saboteur. A person who engages in sabotage.
Yep.
Okay.
Again, the call is coming from inside the house. Final honorable mention. He almost made the list, but he wasn't here long enough to make it. Sam Dyson. 12 games in 2019 after being the Twins' big acquisition at the deadline for a very good team. 7.15 ERA, underwent shoulder surgery, and turned out to be a terrible guy who abused his girlfriend and cat, Snuggles.
I'm so curious now that we're going to get to the actual list, if you have the cojones, because it's not fully his fault that he was a Twin. I'm just curious to see where this list goes.
Well, there is one guy like that, but I think it predates you. All right. Number 10. And I love that phrase. Saboteur. Somebody who comes into your room and you think this is a great addition. This guy's going to be
engages in sabotage.
And then he just absolutely is a selfish, who is a saboteur. Ryan Suter is number 10.
Wow.
Even Jason Arnott, who played and was a good player in Nashville with Suter, said this guy was a complete pain in the ass from day one. And if you recall, I went back and found this, said, I also heard the people in Minnesota couldn't stand him. Ryan Suter, and Saboteur's perfect because we all thought, oh my God, you got Parisi and Suter, you're going to win Stanley Cups. It's going to be fantastic. He was such a pain that he was bought out when he was still a halfway decent player.
Yeah, it's funny because I think most people viewed him as like the captain centerpiece. No, he wasn't actually a captain though, right? It was always Miko. But he was kind of a captain figure on that team. And not until recently it's come out more that, he was more of a malcontent and a cantankerous bleep hole at times behind the scenes.
Buddied up to the owner, which drove people crazy, and would actually look at his stats between periods to make sure his ice time was sufficient by his standards. All you need to know.
Would you guys look at your stats if you were a hockey player?
Between periods, never.
I want to know how many goals I have. How many goals did I score?
Well, yeah, at the end of the day.
Stat sheet?
Yeah, but like between periods, like the coach is talking and you're like, hey, Slappy, hand me that stat sheet. What's my ice time? Plus, minus, and did I get credit for my 3 shots or something?
Or for my secondary assist. I want to see.
Exactly. Did I get credit for that? All right, that's number 10. Number 9 is a guy who fits into the Suter mold perfectly, but he wasn't as good. Our friend of the show, because he did make one appearance on the old radio show, Christian Leitner.
Oh my God, that was. I wonder if we still have that audio. That was a 3.5-minute interview because Christian did not like the last question. And so he snuck his plug in for Buffalo Wild Wings.
Gotta go.
And said, I gotta go, guys.
Gotta go.
Said, hey, when you said the legendary story of you pointing to each locker in the Timberwolves locker room after your departure, loser, 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 winner. Is that a true story? Pause. Well, you guys can go to BuffaloWildWings.com/March Madness. That's BuffaloWildWings.com/March Madness. Appreciate the time, guys. Click.
Which was great. Which made for a great soundbite.
Oh, man. He actually had a pretty decent career. I mean, obviously it wasn't like Shaquille O'Neal and Alonzo Mourning were the other two guys drafted in the top 3, right?
Yes.
But he had a decent career as kind of a role player. He was a featured player on the Hawks, and then he kind of stuck around on a couple teams. But yeah, I'd say that's a saboteur. Yes.
Okay. So Christian Leitner is 9. Number 8, we also stay in the same era of a Timberwolves basketball. 5th overall pick of the 93 draft, J.R. Rider.
Wow.
Who was a bigger pain in the ass than Leitner. I think he might have been a better teammate. But he is what's the famous story? Late for a practice or game and said, my pipes froze.
Yes.
Was late to his own introductory press conference, almost causing fisticuffs between Jack McCluskey and Sid Hartman.
That's right.
J.R. Rider, and once threatened the Pioneer Press beat guy, Ray Richardson, by saying something like, I have people who know where you live. Okay?
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Ray Richardson, man. I haven't heard that name in a long time.
A saboteur of epic proportions, Isaiah J.R. Rider.
Love it.
Number 7 on the list. We get to some Gopher football. Is your chili hot? Because this guy wasn't. Tim Brewster. 15-30 over 3+ seasons, 6-21 in the Big Ten, fired in season, and the guy who was supposed to take the program from where Mace put it, which was in a pretty good place, like not ideal, but pretty damn good, right? Brought respectability back. And within those 3 years, 3+ seasons, tore the program down to a point of being a complete embarrassment. Tim Brewster is number 7.
Dude, what's hilarious about Tim Brewster? So he's been a football coach, a college football coach, or an NFL football coach since 1989. Okay? Long coaching. He's 62 years old now. So starting in 1989, he was the tight ends coach for North Carolina. He has been a tight ends coach. Actually, he spent 1 year as a wide receiver coach at Mississippi State in 2012. So he's either been a tight ends position coach or the 1 year wide receiver coach for his entire coaching career dating back to 1989. Never qualified enough to be an offensive coordinator or an assistant head coach or a defensive or special teams coordinator.
Nope.
The only team that gave him a job above tight ends coach was the Gophers from 2007 through 2010.
Yeah. To replace a guy who had done a very
train wreck, dude.
Who had done in Mace a very respectable job. Like you were supposed to take the next step, not go 10 steps backwards.
And I still think like Mace had so many historical blown leads, and the program had kind of peaked a few years earlier, and it was kind of coming back down a little bit. Now, in retrospect, if you gave me the choice of keep Mace for 4 more years or Tim Brewster, I think you'd rather let it ride with Mace. I still think it was the right decision to try and get to the next level with someone, but wow, what an incredible whiff.
But Maturi absolutely struck out there. And I have heard, not confirmed, but I guess a couple of days before to recklessly speculate, one of the stories is that, if I'm not mistaken, Brewster was the tight ends coach for the Broncos. Yeah. And basically, I think Mike Shanahan was there at the time and essentially wanted to get rid of Brewster. And so gave him the old, oh, yeah, this guy's great. You guys should hire him. He'll be fantastic there.
Dude, that's incredible.
Gave him the old vote of, oh, yeah, put me down as a reference, Tim. I'm going to give you a glowing review because I want to get rid of you.
How are you? I mean, in the moment, I was a senior, so I was going to school there and just, going to the library, the bar of the library, not the actual library, getting drunk every night pretty much. So I don't remember what I thought in the moment. But how do you not look at that resume and say, he's been a tight ends coach for like almost 20 years, and they're desperate to get rid of him with the Denver Broncos? Maybe a little bit of a red flag. I don't know.
Yeah,
exactly. Anyways.
Exactly. All right, that's number 7. Number 6, staying on the football theme. Number 6 is a guy who came here, resurrected his career, was signed to a 3-year, $12.7 million contract by new coach Brad Childress and Company, and had been named the 2005 Ed Block Courage Award winner for the Vikings, as voted on by his teammates because he was a model of inspiration, sportsmanship, and courage. But then Corin Robinson went to training camp in 2006 and engaged and had a few drinks, which he had said that he had quit drinking because of his problems with alcohol, which is good. Had a few drinks in the cities, decided he had to get back to Mankato by curfew, and engaged in a 510 mile per hour pursuit with police through St. Peter. So one day I saw Corin in a jersey in training camp practice, and the next day I was in the St. Peter courtroom, and he was in shackles with an orange jumpsuit on, and that's the last time I saw Corin Robinson.
Corin Robinson. It's kind of a sad story. Definitely not like a devious saboteur, just kind of a can't get out of his own way saboteur.
Well, you just be late getting back to Mankato, and you're going to get in some trouble there, but don't engage in a high-speed pursuit through St. Peter, where, Phil, we probably got busted for going 40.
Yeah. I never got pulled over because I heard all these stories. Just keep it at 29 or 30 miles an hour. Maybe stop at that Subway for a little snack if you need to and be on your way. I will say this about Corin Robinson. I've told you guys in like 2005, 2006, early in young Macadac's radio career, when he was an intern and a part-time producer at a different radio station, KFXN in Minneapolis, St. Paul. And one of my jobs was to go bring a microphone and a script to these players and have them read liners, right? You're listening to Vikings football on yada, yada, right? And I think because it was training camp, I'm pretty sure Nate Burleson was great doing that. And Corn Robinson, I'll never forget. I walked up to him all nervous. I was like 19 years old, 20 years old. And he kind of put his arm around me and brought me over to that fence along the concrete path as you're walking out of the training camp fields back in the Mankato days.
Sure.
And he put his arm around me. He's like, come on over here. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's get these. And so he did like 3 takes on one of them. He did the first. He's like, I don't like that one. Can I do another one? I was like, wow, yeah, you can do this. He like leaned into it and embraced it and put his arm around a 19-year-old kid. And I'll always appreciate Corn Robinson for that. So
Corn was very nice at times and very convincing that his problems were all in the past.
Yeah.
Which is when I should have been suspicious.
Poor guy. All right, before we get to the top 5 Minnesota sports saboteurs here, let's talk about our friends at EcoFund for a moment. So, all right, it's scooter season, and you can save $300 off the total price of a Yamaha Zuma 125 fuel-injected scooter at EcoFund. Lowest price ever. They also have blue or black in stock ready to ride home, so whatever you want to choose color-wise there. And also on side-by-side, save $2,000 on the most popular Yamaha RMAX 1000 side-by-side. Go anywhere and tackle any obstacle in style with your side-by-side during this riding season. EcoFun for all of your scooter and side-by-side toy needs this summer. EcoFun. Also a shout-out to our friends, speaking of summer fun, the Meadows at Mystic. Book that tee time, folks. One of the best golf courses in the state of Minnesota.
That's right. If I can book tee times, so can you. In fact, I'm looking right now. There's tee times on Tuesday that are available. You can get out for a late little round. You can get out Wednesday morning even. There's plenty of tee times open right now at the Meadows at Mystic Lake, an award-winning, one of the most scenic golf courses in the entire Twin Cities. Go to golfthemeadows.com to learn more. You can also enjoy a cold one on the Meadows Bar and Grill, pre or post, or even the middle of your round like I'd like to do at the turn. Go to golfthemeadows.com to secure that tee time.
All right, we've come to the top 5 here. The top 5 Minnesota sports saboteurs, according to Judd.
All right. I have to go in the Wayback Machine to the spring of 1988, April to be exact for this one. But this is a double saboteur. A double saboteur in the Metrodome in the Twins clubhouse. That would be Tommy Herr.
Okay.
So Tommy Herr was first of all acquired for Tom Brunansky from the Cardinals. Brunansky had gotten off to a slow start, but was absolutely instrumental in the 87 World Series championship against said Cardinals. Tom Herr came here. First of all, the story is he cried on the plane here, hated it here. So he was supposed to solve pre-Knobloch the Twins' second base problems, which had existed. Now, Tim Tuffle was okay, but it went from Tuffle to Lombardozzi, and Tommy Herr was supposed to be the guy for a long time here. Lasted one summer before being traded, I think, right after the 88 season to Philadelphia for pitcher Shane Raleigh. And then for the real saboteur, Tommy Herr is supposedly the guy who, during a road trip to Seattle, told the impressionable Gary Gaetti, Herbeck's running mate and one of the great partiers of all time, about God and how the world was going to come to an end and how G-Man had to repent soon or else there was going to be trouble. And Gaetti bought it hook, line, and sinker and basically became born again because of Tommy Herr, if this is all true, which I choose to believe because the saboteur angle is too good not to. And that basically, so he not only screwed the Twins on himself because he didn't want to play here, but if you recall, Gaetti was then gone by, I believe it was after the 89 season, to the Angels as a free agent and really goofed up a chemistry that had been working perfectly in 87.
So I'm glad Gary Gaetti found purpose in life, but he scared Gary Gaetti into a drastic life change, and maybe it was good for Gaetti.
But not for him, the baseball player, and that's all we cared about.
You're saying Gaetti finding religion is what derailed his baseball career? I'm
saying that Gaetti's career derailed. He then came back, I think, after he left the Angels. But what I'm saying is Gaetti and Herbeck were like these legendary partiers, baseball guys, gritty, get dirty type of guys. And Gaetti changed.
Poor Gaetti, man.
But that hurt.
You can Yeah, I mean, I think maybe Gary Getty needs to learn, if he could go back 35 years ago, you can still be religious and enjoy a night out on the town once in a while. Like, there's room for both in life.
Absolutely.
It's too bad. Okay.
Tommy Herr, though, lives up to the word on that screen right now. Saboteur, number 5.
All right, number 4.
Number
Declan,
4.
Declan, what do you think about number 5?
God.
That's a legendary story, by the way. I just told you a legendary story. All right. Number 4, back to the Vikings. A free agent who came to us from the Washington team, now named the Commanders. A man who spearheaded the Love Boat. A man who was mocked by Steve Smith in the end zone in a game at Carolina. A man who said that water covers 2/3 of the earth and he covers 1/3.
I cover the rest. Yeah.
Freddie Smoot, a saboteur of legendary proportions.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man, that was a great line. I can't remember what the exact one. It was something like that. Water covers 3/4 of the earth or 2/4 of the earth, and I cover the rest. Except you don't at all.
No, and you're not good enough to justify it. He's the guy too. So Smooty came here, and he's like Fred Smoot won't, talking. So excited to be here. I'm going to help things and change things. I remember talking to Smoot after Tice got fired and Childress got the job, and Smoot's like, yeah, this is going to be way more professional. Just ripped Tice, right? Just absolutely ripped him. Halfway through the next year, or 2006, he couldn't stand Brad.
Yeah.
Fred, you got to look in the mirror.
This is interesting. So we've come to the top 3, and so far this list is 100%. Well, not 100%. It's all players and Tim Brewster. So I'm curious.
Change.
You've put no accountability on people who bring players in to organizations.
That's about to change.
Okay.
That's about to change because these are the top 3 saboteurs, starting with 3 in Minnesota sports, according to me. Number 3, a man who led the Wolves, and I use led lightly, to an 89-223 record in 4 years. And the Wolves finished at least 14 games under 500 in each of his seasons as the lead basketball executive. A man who once made a legendary appearance on the Royce and Mackey show, David Kahn, is number 3.
Michael Beasley smokes too much weed. Yep, that came from our radio show. Wow, number 3. This is actually amazing. All right, I think I know who one of the last 2 is. I don't know if I have 2 other names written down. I think you're going to leave one off. I think one of them has to be in here, so we'll see.
Okay.
But David Kahn, that's another one. It's like, you're Glenn Taylor. What are you doing? This guy was a nobody before.
David Stern.
So David Stern recommended him to get the Wolves to implode and move out of Minnesota?
Glenn Taylor supposedly asked David Stern for recommendations, and according to I guess legend now, David Kahn was suggested by David Stern.
What a disaster. All right, number 2.
Number 2.
At Target Center, it's the Timberwolves Garage Sale.
Garage Sale.
All day long, items such as these. Sam Cassell's Big Brass Ones dance instruction video, just $4.99. Michael Olowokandie's VIP pass to Bellanote, just 99 cents. Johnny Flynn's teeth whitener. Nikola Pekovic's game-worn ankle wraps. How about David Kahn's mole in a jar?
Wow, what a pull. What a pull.
That was one of the great.
That's got to be like 9 years ago.
Yes.
9 years ago from the old radio show.
Yes.
All right, number 2 on the Minnesota Sports Saboteur list.
Okay, the final 2 deserve exactly what they're going to get, partially because both allegedly got a little bit handsy in their jobs and that they weren't good at what they did. Number 2, Norwood Teague.
Yeah.
Whoa. Wow.
Norwood
Forgot
Teague.
about that guy.
I think that Norwood Teague qualifies as a scumbag. I think he actually does fit scumbag status. And again, like Phil said, this is a great list for the most part of saboteurs. But Teague did, he just was absolutely, if Tim Brewster was a bad coaching hire, Teague is the equivalent of the AD, right?
Yeah.
Just completely overwhelmed, had no clue, and turned out to be an awful guy with about 8 cell phones. So Norwood Teague, I think, is very solidly, very
Very
secure
slimy. Yeah.
in the second place on this list.
The Gophers were whoever was making decisions. I mean, Maturi was the one that made the Brewster hire, but then the Board of Regents or whoever
Who was the president at the time?
was it? It wasn't Brunings, was it? I can't remember the timeline. But my God, like, how do you get duped by some of these people? Norwood Teague, you could walk into a room for 30 seconds around that guy and just feel the used car salesman.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
The polyester pants type of thing.
the stale cologne under his neck. Yeah,
Oh, yeah. He qualifies as a scumbag.
dude, absolute creep. Total, like an actual creep. And now he did hire Richard Pitino, and for a while that was a good hire. So I think, because they won the NIT and then they went to the NCAA tournament.
But he was
going
to
to
get like Shaka Smart, like I'm with Shaka at VCU.
He did.
I'm going to get you Shaka.
He did basically portray that he was going to get Shaka Smart. Yeah. Okay, and the number one Minnesota sports saboteur. You've already at least snubbed. You've snubbed at least 2 people on my list.
Oh, I'm sure I have. Oh yeah, no. This list is totally subjective. There was one guy I thought of, but I couldn't do it. But this guy is number one, and he deserves it. Another guy total creep, scumbag, Norm Green.
Okay.
Norm
Yep.
Green. But I mean, he didn't move the team for a good reason. He supposedly there were complaints about his workplace conduct. Norm Green and Teague are actual scumbags.
Yeah.
So they both qualify, I think, to be atop this list.
Okay. So here's the honorable mentions are Lou Holtz, Kurt Rambis, Bernard Berry, and Erasmus James, Sam Dyson. And then the top 10 Minnesota sports saboteurs are Ryan Suter, 10, Christian Leitner, 9, J.R. Ryder, 8, Tim Brewster, 7, Corin Robinson, 6, Tommy Herr, 5, Fred Smoot, 4, David Kahn, 3, Norwood Teague, 2, Norm Green, number 1. Norm Green has to be number 1. He literally sabotaged a franchise and moved them to Dallas.
Yes, sir.
So some other names that I feel like I would for sure put Bill Smith. I love Bill Smith, and I would consider Bill Smith
Considered him
an acquaintance or a friend. But Bill Smith had a really rough run as a general manager of the Twins.
Yep.
I thought you might put Tom Thibodeau on here just because of how he blew up the young nucleus, brought in Jimmy Butler, and then refused to be a parent and just let the whole thing explode.
Mm-hmm.
So I almost feel like he has to be on there. And then I thought you might put Gerson Rosas on just because of it's funny because he built a playoff team. But then it was more of like a self-sabotage for him. It didn't really sabotage the Timberwolves. The Timberwolves were fine without him, and they went to the playoffs. But
right.
Interesting.
All 3 probably deserving. Yeah, Bill Smith I considered for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Rosas I probably should have. Tibbs I didn't consider, but I could have.
Yeah. So there it is, Judd's top 10 Minnesota sports saboteurs. And I have for you gentlemen, before we wrap this episode, a random Minnesota athlete of the week.
All right.
Expanding our franchise from random Viking of the week on Purple Daily to random Minnesota athlete of the week here on Minnesota Sports with Mackey and Judd. We've done 4 episodes of this. Declan and I have passed. I think next week, Judd, we need you to put together clues for the first time. So next Tuesday, you put together clues.
Just remind me.
Okay.
On Monday.
We will.
Send me a text. Hey, don't forget.
Judd with 3 correct answers so far. I have 1. Declan has 0. The 4 random athletes to this point are Anthony Swarzak, Kyle Brodziak, Brent Burns, and Randy Foy.
Mm-hmm.
Today's random Minnesota athlete is presented by our friends at Nutrisource. Nutrisource Pet Foods, the official dog and pet food of Mackey and Judd and Purple Daily. Maya Mackey this morning, she actually let her pop sleep in a little bit. And then we, as a reward, gave her a big old scoop of Nutrisource chicken and rice to keep her digestive system on track.
Tell me your tricks, Phil, because I did not sleep in. The wake-up call, 6:35 this morning. The little girl on the left woke me up and said, I want to go outside. And more importantly, I want my Nutrisource now. And here's the good part, though. Stella, she's not young. She's getting old. But you know what? Nutrisource keeps her healthy and happy. Now there is a cute younger dog.
That's a happy little boy right there who we took to the rooftop after, looking at all the packages and all the packing that's going on in the apartment. Let's go on the roof. Let's run around a little bit as we get some grilling done yesterday. this last week, and luckily he's doing pretty good. And he loves his Nutrisource treats. So thank you to Nutrisource for keeping this little boy happy.
NutrisourcePetFoods.com to find a Nutrisource retailer near you. NutrisourcePetFoods.com. All right, this is a Minnesota twin.
Okay.
So we'll start there. So this random Minnesota twin originally hails from Seattle, Washington. By the way, you guys get up to 3 incorrect guesses. You can guess anytime you want. You can ask me questions. I can refuse to answer.
Okay.
No cheating, no Googling. Seattle, Washington. This random twin has a fraternal twin brother. Declan has a guess.
What's fraternal mean again? Which one's fraternal?
Not identical,
Not
but it's a twin that kind of looks like you, but not identical.
Okay.
This random twin played college baseball in the Pac-12.
Stayed home.
Mm-hmm. Played pretty well in the Pac-12, but went undrafted.
Oh.
Undrafted. It's a 50-round draft, and this dude went undrafted. And despite being undrafted, this random twin played 763 career Major League games.
Wow.
Did the fraternal twin brother also play in the big leagues?
I don't believe so, but they did play together in high school.
Okay.
Let's see here. No, I don't think his twin made it to the show.
Okay.
Oh. Yeah, he was this player was the one I'm talking about was a first team Pac-12 all conference selection in 2 different years, but still was undrafted. So
That sounds like the scouts.
what do you got to
to
do? And I would say, yeah, he's definitely not like obviously not
My
a,
Declan, are you
camera's-
out of focus?
No, my camera does this sometimes. if I
when you
move
back out.
around.
Here, do this. Go full screen. Go full screen. We'll get you back.
I thought, am I having a stroke or is Declan?
There you
we
go. There you go.
Okay, I got very concerned about myself for a second.
If both of us get blurry, it's probably you having a stroke. If it's
Yeah,
just
that's
Declan, it's the camera getting out of
Not
focus.
good. Okay.
Yeah, he wasn't necessarily like a scout's darling. I don't think you would look at this random twin and say, "Oh yeah, that guy, that's a Hall of Famer for sure."
He's undrafted.
But 763 career Major League games and won a World Series. Has a World Series ring.
I guess, but now that takes it out.
World Series ring.
So those 763 games covered a span of 13 seasons in the major leagues. Went from undrafted to playing 13 seasons in the major leagues, where he made about $9 million total in the bigs.
I'm gonna take a guess, and I don't know why, but it seems like a guy that you might pick. So I will guess. My first guess. Is it Matthew LeCroy?
Oh, love me some Matthew LeCroy, but that's not correct.
Okay. I thought he
That's
might
not
have won a
correct.
World Series like as a part of the Nats organization when
Let me see if Matthew LeCroy won a World Series.
I don't think he won one as a player. I thought that you were being sneaky.
Matthew LeCroy did not win a World Series.
No, I thought like you had found like a tie-in to where like he got a ring and then won a World Series. I suspect the worst from you now.
Yeah. Let's see here. In 1999, this random twin won the Charlie Huff Good Guy Award in Major League Baseball. It's a good guy. Good guy.
Knuckleballer Charlie Huff, former Dodger, former Ranger. In fact, Gary Gaetti hit in his first game in Arlington a home run. I think his first at bat off Charlie Huff.
Good trivia there. In fact, you know what? Since you brought up knuckleballers, I'm going to say you weren't that far off with Matthew LeCroy because this random twin actually has a lot of experience with knuckleballers.
Mike Redman.
Mike Redman
Dang!
is on the board.
Damn it!
Yeah,
Oh!
he caught, who was that guy? God, he won a Cy Young Award, didn't he? He went from the Twins. Who was that guy who went
R.A.
from the R.A. Dickey?
Oh, R.A.
Didn't he
did.
catch R.A. Dickey? He caught a couple knuckleballers here. It's
Huh.
in his Wikipedia profile.
I don't know.
Oh yes, he would have been. Both
R.A.
of them would
Dickey,
have been here
Dennis
together.
Springer.
Where,
Yeah,
where was
okay.
he runs naked through the clubhouse?
That was too obvious of a clue. That was a last resort clue.
I know it sounds bad, but you said, I don't know why, but when you said catcher, I thought other fat guy, and I was just like, Mike Redmond? I don't know
He's
why.
not fat, though. Mike Redmond's
wasn't
not fat.
No, that's
But,
why he ran naked through the clubhouse, because he was in
Yeah.
such good shape.
Yep.
Okay.
MLB managers, man, he some names on this list. So he's played for Jim Leland, Jack McKeon, John Bowles, Tony Perez, Jeff Torberg, Ron Gardenhire, and Manny Acta. And then he was a manager himself for the Marlins for 3 years, around the time where they were blowing up the franchise again. So
Didn't he once,
we go.
a few times, take BP without clothes on
he did take naked batting practice to inspire his teammates. Yep.
before the doors were opened to the Metro?
I don't think it wasn't like on the field. I don't think
Yeah,
it
it
was.
was- Oh, I
thought he came
It
out
was
of the-
in the cages behind the.
Oh, I thought he might have come out in the field.
I don't
No,
think so.
I don't think he did that. I think it was
No,
most likely in the
there's.
cages,
You think
yes.
like there's just like, oh, we're quick. We're gonna let the fans
like,
in.
yeah.
Mike, get back in the. No, I think it was
baseball,
in the
baby.
cages behind the
Oh,
scenes.
okay.
But he's rounding first.
So those cages,
Oh, he
though,
trip
were
over the bag or something else. I'm
in
not
the
sure.
hallway, right? Where were they?
The cages
Yeah.
in the
the
Metrodome.
dome.
I think
Yeah.
they were. My first year on the beat was the first year at Target Field, so I wasn't like behind the
Oh, you
scenes
didn't-
as much
okay.
at the Metrodome.
I used to go all the time.
I was
but
more.
have no
I
idea
was
where
press
the-
box and clubhouse,
Yeah,
but it was
okay.
somewhere back there. Yeah. So there is. All right, Mike Redmond. Declan's on the board for the first time
I
here,
regret that loss.
and we will remind Judd to put together some clues for
Yeah.
next week.
What do you got for
Text
tomorrow?
We'll put it on our calendar to remind you.
Text me a note. Text me a note. Because if I write down right now, I'll forget. I'll lose the piece of paper. So just text me a note. Hey, don't forget.
Because the piece of paper is the only way to keep track of your schedule.
I don't have one of those calendar things on my
You
phone.
do,
Well,
actually.
I do have one. I just don't use it.
literally will click accept on all of the invites that I send you.
I just don't have the thing to. I don't remember.
All right, we'll see you guys tomorrow for a little write that
Darn it.
down here. Minnesota Sports with Mackey and Judd.